time and thank her, Dr. Bridget Carnemolla.
As some of you already know, including Mike, I have never met either of these gentlemen, met Mr. Donato finally tonight. So when we embarked down this path, the first thing that I had to do was find out who both Joe Donato and Paul McMahon were. And that led to the basement of our office of about 10,000 pages worth of old personnel file material that we dug out, and one of the assistant superintendents, Mr. Medic, who some of you also met and helped out with this, read through in order to first be able to decide, would we be able to push this forward and move it through and approve it based on the two of them having been employees here, which of course we expected to be able to do. In the meantime, it was a curious journey, I guess I would say, for us to learn about both Mr. Donato and Mr. McMahon with what I would call was a legacy of documents that even just a couple of told the story of exactly who these two gentlemen are. And along the way, even today, I received further stories, anecdotes, and so forth about the two of them. So I think what would be most appropriate for me to do in sharing with you is what I think is part of the legacy that is inherent in what I found said about them by others. At Mr. Donato's retiring, and as I think you all know, he worked with us here for 37 years and is the reason that our music program started and is as successful still as it is. At his retirement, Mr. Pandisia, superintendent before my time, wrote a letter to commemorate his work here in the schools. I'll just read you a part of that I think speaks volumes. Until passing the baton this last summer, Joe was also, in addition to being in our music department, the director of the district's highly successful summer theater program, producing such as The Music Man, Oklahoma, The King and I, and Oliver, among others. He has also organized a number of exchange visits between Avon High School and schools from towns in Canada, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, and New York. And I'll pause there for a moment and note that one of the many letters that I found in Mr. Donato's file was from a student after graduation who had participated in one of those exchange programs and wanted to be a host herself. And a follow-up letter from the family and the student that she had hosted to Mr. Donato to thank him for that legacy. Not one to coast gently into retirement, that's clear. Joe has, during the last 6 years prior to retirement, been the linchpin in the sister school partnership that Avon High School has forged with Cato Bonchi's Van Beek Gymnasium in Achim, Germany. These highly successful concert tours and homestays have been directed by Joe. Joe and his students have also dedicated many hours to the Avon community and beyond through concerts at the Senior Center, Riverdale Farms, and the Hartford Civic Center. Joe has probably participated in more Memorial Day parades than any other Avon resident. There were a lot of those letters. With the high school marching band each year, only 3 parades have been rained out. In addition, the music for each home football game and the June graduation ceremony is provided by the high school band directed by Joe. As a freelance conductor, Joe has been called upon to conduct for Bob Hope, Helen O'Connell, and Sammy Davis Jr. As a guitarist, he has performed with Perry Cuomo, Sergio Franchi, Roger Williams, Lauren Green, Jerry Lewis, Ginger Rogers, Luciano Pavarotti, and many others. He has performed under the baton of Arthur Fiedler, Gunther Schuller, and Richard Hyman, and most recently played mandolin with the Hartford Symphony. Joe has been given master classes for guitar in Connecticut, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire. Superintendent went on to say Joe might be retiring from Avon Public Schools, but he will always share with others his love of music and talent for many years to come. Joe, next time you're playing at the Bushnell, let us know. We'll be there. Perfect. Yeah. For Mr. McMahon, I thought it fitting when I found a letter from Mr. Michael Buckley, who was the principal at Avon High School, and later became the director of the Connecticut Association of Schools. He wrote Mr. McMahon a very nice letter. I'll read you an excerpt from it, again, that I think tells us who Paul McMahon was. You can certainly look back on pride with your accomplishments, Paul, both during the past year and throughout your career. With regard to the former, you accomplished wonderful things with your objectives. I was not at all surprised with your success with the homeroom group. After all, you connect to students as well as anyone in the building. I knew that your 12 students would soon learn what hundreds of others have learned before them, that you're an adult who puts kids first, and that things of quality result from the relationships you establish. I was also overwhelmed by how well you did with your computer objectives. Of course, something we would have said at the time. You can't operate a computer now, as my teachers who are here know, you can't work anymore. Talk about a kid in a candy store. Your excitement and enthusiasm truly reminded all of us that learning is for a lifetime. Thanks for modeling those behaviors we seek in all of our students. Paul, you are leaving me with some important memories. I loved catching you at work, rehearsing your kids before school, and already going a mile a minute at 7:30 a.m. I also loved it when you had an idea, and the dreaded thing that all administrators here, I'll add in, do you have a minute? You often said, knowing that something great would come out of that 3 minutes by the copier or so in the hall. Finally, watching a man who believed that music was for everyone and turning that fiction into fact reminded me regularly at concert time of how lucky I am to be principal of this high school. You are the youngest at heart retiree I know, but then you are not really retiring, just shifting your talents and energies to other arenas. Thank you for everything. I consider it my privilege to have worked with you for 7 years. Don't be a stranger. And that was after 25 years that Mr. McMahon worked with us here at Avon High School. Finally, someone who's with us tonight, and I don't want to point out and possibly embarrass, shared something else with me about both of them that I think is very important. Someone who's still on our staff here at the high school wrote me to let me know, and I hadn't known this, by the way, that he is a member of the class of the Avon High School 1974 graduation. He told me both Mr. McMahon and Mr. Donato were part of the staff then. Although their personalities were very different, they were great friends, and both helped countless students, I did hear a little bit of that, embrace music in ways they never had before. Heck, it was because of them that I let myself be wrapped in green sequins and basically pushed out onto the stage as Conrad Birdie. Some of you may know who that is, I guess. You couldn't say no to these guys. But cut a million years ahead in time, to the evening, we were all meeting at George's Pizza for a memorial get-together after Mr. McMahon's funeral. I walked in and was directed to the back area where I expected to find 30 or so tearful, aging former students crying in their beers. But that's not what I would find. Oh no. Remember, these were Mr. McMahon's and some of Mr. Donato's music students. As I moved deeper into the restaurant, I began to hear it, and my pace quickened. It was loud and getting louder, and everybody in the place, perfect strangers, seemed to be just fine with that. The most beautiful barbershop quartet music that you can imagine filled the Apricot Lounge that night. I came around the corner and the tables were rocking, the chairs were rolling, and Mr. McMahon's and Mr. Donato's students were showing you what a real music teacher's students do. You pass. They celebrate you and the lifelong gift of music you gave them. And man, those guys were still awesome. I think thank you, Mike, for bringing this crazy idea.
Thank you.
Thank you to Heidi for reaching out also on behalf of the McMahons. I'm glad we were able to pull all of this together. I'm sorry that some of this was last minute in terms of the scheduling for tonight. We were trying to make it work for a lot of people to be here. It looks like you were able to do that, and I'm thrilled that you're able to be here to celebrate on behalf of these two fantastic former members of our Avon Public Schools faculty. And thank you, Mr. Donato, for all that you did. And